Hi, we're live. Sorry, I had my screen was blocked on the whether we're live or not. I'm like, we're live. Yeah, hello everyone. Everything's good. Now to Russ with something to say.
So let's talk about. There's never a good transition for that. I know.
That's the best I can do.
That's fine. Let's talk a little bit about Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers needs to mature, get a life. He needs to double check himself, actually, same way he would if this were State Farm. He let it fly to somebody on second day of the draft that, hey, he probably isn't coming back. And, the Packers were like, yeah, that's great, but you're our quarterback. We're keeping you. So they went through the whole draft this way. And they get through the draft that way. And now, again, you hear through third parties that Aaron Rodgers is like, well, if the GM doesn't get fired, the guy who picked the guy who was going to replace me, then I'm just going to retire. And so here's the problem with this. Brett Favre got killed because he never gave a damn about Aaron Rodgers, who sat at the other end of the bench, never helped him 1 minute. And this is something we see quite frequently with goaltenders in the NHL. Even John Van Beesbrook helped Mike Richter, and I'm pretty sure he knew that was his successor, and he still helped him along. So Brett Favre wouldn't do it for Rodgers, and now Rodgers won't do it for Jordan Love. And now Rodgers is trying to get the GM fired. And I got to tell you, if I'm the owner, I'm like, you know what, Aaron Rodgers, go ahead and go and enjoy your retirement. You weren't good enough for Jeopardy. And if you think that you own this league, then that's tough.
Well, okay, here. Apparently, Rodgers leaked a bunch of different stuff to different reporters. And one of the things that he leaked was to Ian Rappaport. And what he leaked to him was that if he was going to retire, he would be the host of Jeopardy. That would be like –
that's in his mind.
Well,
LeVar Burton's going to get the job probably. And in his mind, he thinks he's the host of Jeopardy.
They said Joe Buck is trying out for it.
And that's only because Fox wants to get out of his contract, probably.
Well, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. And I don't know whether it's the GM or the team president who was the same person that was around when Favre and Rodgers were going at it. But apparently, they were tired of Favre's act because he said he was going to retire like 4 years in a row. And then they basically said, screw this. They're not going to placate Rodgers like they apparently tried to placate Favre and play that game. And I don't blame the Packers, thinking for themselves. But this is all because apparently Rodgers, who's from California, wants to go to California because his fiance is an actress and he wants to be closer to her. Does this remind you of anybody in terms of a hockey?
Here's two things. So Aaron Rodgers basically wants to be Tom Brady, and now that Brady was able to do it, he wants to do it. And Aaron Rodgers, if you had any guts, you would hold your own press conference and say it yourself. Instead of putting out all these different reports, just come out and say it, but he won't. And that's exactly what Tom Brady does all the time too. Brady leaks stuff, and then when it doesn't go his way in the press, then he comes out and he tries to fix it. And Aaron Rodgers will do the same thing at some point.
Now, what I don't understand, Eck, is he's got an opt-out after next year. Why didn't he just shut his mouth, collect his $30 million, opt out after next year, and go wherever? He could have. Instead, he makes the whole thing. It overwhelms the draft. Everybody was talking about Rodgers and not the draft.
It's because of ego. When he took his team to the NFC Championship game and they dared to draft another quarterback who might replace him in 2 to 3 years, he, for some reason, took that as a blow to him, and he's an idiot for it.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah, he just didn't want to play another year there. He
might still. That's the funny thing.
He might still have to. Yeah, for sure. I
mean, he didn't want to get traded down to Atlanta when he was going out with Danica Patrick. But now, since he's engaged to an actress, he wants to get traded to a team in California or on the West Coast.
Right.
I mean, it's just whatever.
Right.
Let's talk hockey.
Right. All right. Let's get back.
None of that stuff happens, right? Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Hello, Hockey World. It is Monday, May 3rd, 2021.
I'm Michael Agello, and would it please stop frickin' raining?
It didn't rain this morning, and I did the lawn, and then I had this massive gash with blood on it. People can go to my Instagram account and see it. Well, you get hit by rocks sometimes when you do lawn, and so it can happen. But I got it in before the rain, so that was the big thing.
There you go. And I'm Eklund. You're watching the Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. It's the podcast that comes to you Monday through Friday to fill you in the comings and goings in the hockey world. And we're back, and now I think we can say it's over, folks. And obviously, well, no, because this is that is the proper time. This now is the proper time to say it's over because of what's happened in the last several games.
When I said the Rangers were going to get swept by the Islanders, you were like, no.
No, I said they. No. You guys play this so crazy. You got to look at the tape here, guys. I've always said that that's the likely outcome, and you guys pointing out the likely outcome is fine, but saying that that's definitely it is wrong.
No, you did say it's the likely outcome, but you still were acting like you were clinging to this. Well, it might not, and it's like okay,
yeah. Well, it might not. I mean, there's no saying. I mean, come on now.
Did you see how bad? Did you see how badly the Islanders beat the Rangers in these two
games?
The
Islanders have, and Varlamov is just owned them. Varlamov's owned them.
All I need is my turban to say I'm Karnak. Let me see.
Mike, people who don't even know what you're talking about. That's the sad part.
No, I like it. I get it. It really is like I like it. No, it really at the end of the day, I mean, this was the likely outcome. But the Rangers and the Flames and the Canadians, by not playing very well, made it all kind of interesting for a little bit there. And that to me that was worth it because now we have 6 more games with nothing to think about except for matchups, right? And that's where we are. We are definitely at the matchup point now, and that's going to be an interesting topic this week and different things. And we still have, we still very much have Dallas and Nashville, who are, the crazy thing about that series and the crazy thing about the Dallas Stars is their 13 overtime losses this year.
Yeah,
which is an unbelievable thing for the Dallas Stars.
Awesome.
That's compared to the Predators' 2 overtime losses. Think about the difference there. I mean, if the Stars win half of those games, half of the 13 games, they're actually they're tied with the Tampa Bay Lightning. That's how close the difference is. And you're talking about lots of shootout losses there, lots of regular. It's just like we're talking about the matter of inches between the Dallas Stars being really like a legitimate contending team again and being not in the playoffs. So
I do want to say welcome back to Funky. I just noticed them in the chat room. So
welcome back, bud. So I mean, it's a really a tough game to deal with as far as you see how Dallas and Nashville now, and they played again to another overtime.
Yes.
And this year, 4 of the 6 going in now, 5 of the 7 games that these two teams have played have gone to overtime with Nashville winning all 5 in overtime. I mean, that's like an unbelievable.
That is an unbelievable thing.
It's just so you don't have to look any further than that, for the difference between why Nashville's making it and why Dallas might not, that's still as they play again tonight,
they play Florida tonight, Dallas.
They play Florida tonight. They do play again, right?
That was the last. That was the last.
That was the last one. Okay, all right. Sorry, I got that wrong. Yes, they play Florida. I mean, they still have games left here. It's still possible. They're only 3 points behind them. They still have a game at hand too. So it's like
the luster is starting to wear on them, though. It is. They were more lustery a week ago. Now it's
the shine is limited on the Star.
Yeah,
I don't know though. I mean, it's still super close.
I mean, they should dance on the Star yet. They're not dead. It's not like the Cowboys, but I'm just saying.
Okay, Terrell.
I mean, it's still super close. I mean, it's still crazy close, really, when you think about it. I mean, Dallas they have 1 game in hand, so if they win that game, they are 1 point behind the Predators. That's it. But 13 overtime losses. It's just like I mean, there aren't any teams. There's only one other team with double-digit overtime losses, and that is Columbus. Oddly enough.
Yeah, it may be too late when Seguin comes back. That's the reality. Hopefully, it's not, but it could be.
Because here's the thing, yeah, right. But here's the thing about Dallas, right? They have only lost 17 games in regulation, which is, I mean, that's just crazy. I mean,
today's NHL. That's the crazy part of it.
Yeah, I mean, Nashville's lost 22 games in regulation, and they're going to make the playoffs and the Star ahead of the Stars.
You know what's interesting? So if we had the old scoring system and we didn't have the shootout, those ties would actually be a benefit because then this wouldn't be helping Nashville out as much.
No, by far. I mean, if all those things just go to ties, Nashville only has 2 overtime losses. So I mean, you're looking at an 11-point difference there.
Yeah.
The Dallas would be ahead of them by 9 points with a game in hand right now.
So
if those were just
Dallas
ties.
has to look at it and say, what are we doing wrong in overtime? Because they're obviously doing something wrong.
Yeah, I mean it's that's an incredible statistic and just boggling. Okay,
Sagan's activated.
what happened?
Sagan is
The
activated.
second is activated officially. Okay,
So I don't know when he'll play, but the fact that he's activated means he could play tonight, I guess.
I guess he could. Yeah, I guess he could. Hold on a second, guys. I gotta take this call real fast. I'll be right there.
Okay.
That could be big, Mike. I mean, if Sagan comes back, produces in this game, and they get a regulation win, that does help their chances a lot more than what we were talking about 5 minutes ago. But that's a big if.
But that, I mean, realistically, that is the only race.
Yes.
If you look at the North, and I think we're going to talk about the options of what's going to happen in the North when Eck gets back. Montreal has an 8-point lead on Calgary, so it's over.
It's over.
Yeah.
And we said it was going to be over. Look, Montreal didn't look good, right? But they did just enough. And you know what? Again, Cole Caulfield with that goal definitely sparked them, and they needed that win. And maybe that sparks them down the stretch. Having a kid like Caulfield on the team with all that positive energy and the skating and the shot, even if he doesn't score a lot of points, just having him there sometimes will, get those veterans going. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. So let's be straight here. The four teams in the North are locked, literally. Not mathematically, but they're locked. The 4 teams in the East, Pittsburgh, Washington, Islanders, and Boston, are locked. The difference between Boston and the Rangers is 8 points with 6 games to go for Boston. It's over. In the West, okay. Yeah, I think it's over with because St. Louis has got 3 games in hand on Arizona. They're up by 3 points. So if they only get half the points, if they get 3 out of 6 potential points, they're 6 points up. If they get all 3 wins, they're 9 points up. So it's over. It's Vegas, Colorado, Minnesota, and Dallas. The only race left is Nashville and Dallas.
So let me ask a question here. So tonight I'm covering Philly against Pittsburgh. Does Philly care enough to win this game to try and keep Pittsburgh from winning the division? I think it's a fair question to ask only because the way the Flyers are playing, I don't know if they care enough.
So Philly mathematically can clinch the East if they win. Pittsburgh. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think Philly will actually work themselves up for that because nobody wants to be.
If they don't, then there's even bigger problems on the team than we realized already.
And as goalie FP in the chat says, Malkin is back after missing 23 games. So,
but you never know. See that when Malkin comes back from a big time being out, he always scores the first goal. But then there's always that trouble of fitting him in. So this first game could be a little askew with him in there.
Yeah, they sometimes take the foot off the gas pedal. So
yes.
That is possible. But really, I mean, with a little over a week to go in the schedule, the only thing left to determine are matchups, and that's it. It's not other than that. It's just who's going to face who in the playoffs.
Right, and not get injured. True, this is very true. So I mean, I do want to look at that, Mike, that you were talking about there, the Northern Division, because it's gotten kind of interesting who Toronto.
Before you do the North, I wanted to ask you this because it's a goalie thing. Yeah. The NHL Network said this yesterday before they had him on for an interview. They announced Ryan Miller. They said, "Hey, we're going to have the greatest American-born goalie on next, Ryan Miller," and I'm like, that is so wrong. And I love Ryan Miller.
Yeah, I do too.
He's not. He's not even the third best.
No, I don't think he's the best American goalie ever. No, I don't. I definitely don't think so. It's a really good debate.
You could make an argument that he's not even the second best American the best American goalie to ever play for the Buffalo Sabres.
Right. Right.
Now Barrasso won his 2.
I put him ahead of Barrasso. I do.
Barrasso won 2 Stanley Cups.
He did, but with if Miller's on that team, he wins those Stanley Cups too. I mean, that's not like. I mean, you got to put together. I mean, that team.
And don't get me wrong. I think Miller's a great goaltender. He's not a Hall of Famer, but he's a great goaltender. Did Miller at 18 years old win the Calder and the Vezina? No.
Did. Yeah, no, for sure. Barrasso did, and no, and Barrasso had a hell of a beginning and everything like that. I'm a bigger Barrasso fan than a lot of people are. Barrasso has his definitely detractors out there, but I did put him in the top 5 for sure.
Yeah,
I think Richter's the best.
Yeah, Richter's better. Richter is better than Ryan Miller. No matter how you slice it, he is better than Ryan Miller. And Frank Grimsick may be better than all of them, but because it's so long ago, it's like everybody just sort of gets over that one. But if you're telling me he's the best, then you're telling me he's better than Mike Richter, and I'm telling you he's not.
No, it is a tough call. I mean, and I put Quick in the top 5 too, but I think
Quick's in there. But I'll tell you,
Quick might be the only one who gets into the Hall of Fame because of winning the Stanley Cups. Yes. And that might be the end of the day. And he's not better than Richter. He's not better than he's not better than Miller.
My issue was Richter's career was cut short because of the skull fracture. Like that,
right.
He still was playing pretty well. I was covering the team. He still could have done good things as far as getting wins and adding to his resume. And instead, he got a skull fracture, and that ended that. Quick's last couple of years have been really throwaway years, and then they may continue to be that way. And, that doesn't look good.
Yeah, I mean, I do think Miller's a Hall of Famer, though. Okay, but again, you guys know I think Richter's a Hall of Famer, and I think that's one of the biggest injustices in the Hall of Fame.
Okay, so let's go through this quickly. I think Quick's a Hall of Famer. He's won 2 Stanley Cups. He was a dominant goaltender for 5 or 6 years before the injuries. I think Richter should be a Hall of Famer.
Yep.
I think at that point, there's the line of demarcation. I mean, Barrasso should be a Hall of Famer, but he won't be because his personality rhymes with his name.
Right.
So that's probably
what about Van Beesbrook against Miller? That's actually a good comparison. Like that's a good, tough matchup there.
Yeah. I mean, Miller. I think Miller's ahead of Van Beesbrook because of 2010. Because
and there, to me, I wrote a blog about this, and I think there's 4 things that go into into guys, whether guys Hall of Fame or one are the Stanley Cup wins, which obviously Miller doesn't have. The other is was he the best goalie ever in the league at that time? Like, was he the best goalie in his period of time? And there were a couple years where I think Miller was the best goalie in the NHL, and
he was for at least 2 years. And then when he tore his knee up in the 2000 All-Star game, he was the best goalie in the league that year too. But then that was it. He was out for the year.
Richter is, like I've said before, the biggest injustice. So Richter should be in the Hall of Fame before Miller. But let's just talking about Miller in and of itself.
Jim Carrey, you stop. Some Tom put up Jim Carrey.
So was he that? And then you have to look at his international game too, because this is the Hockey Hall of Fame. It's not the NHL Hall of Fame, and people never forget that, And the Hockey Hall of Fame, Miller was a great Team USA goalie, and was really a top notch. And in 2010 was amazing. Now Quick was also an incredible Team USA goalie.
He was
maybe even better than Miller. I would argue that Quick was better than Miller on Team USA.
You make the argument.
No, I mean Miller.
Not for a sustained period though. Like it's for that. If you want to say his 5 years of greatness was better than Miller, I agree with you. But this is.
I would just say if you compare Quick in Sochi versus Miller in Vancouver, I'm going Quick every day of the week.
I'm sorry.
Quick was no. You got to watch those Sochi's games. Like I
did. I watched every one.
Quick was unbelievable in those games, and really just like Miller was good, but really good, but not unbelievable. I was in Vancouver. I watched those games live. Every game that Miller played.
I did too. Miller got them to within 1 goal of winning the gold medal.
Wasn't really Miller that did that though. I mean Miller was really good, but he wasn't like Quick really did carry them. Miller was very, very good. No questions asked. And made great saves.
I think they both were equal. I remember both of them, and I don't think I came across thinking one was better than the other. Like in that regard, I don't think I did.
No. You got to. I would love to watch those two. I really would like everybody to sit down and watch those two back to back. Just because I watched. I mean, I remember in Vancouver. Like there was talk about, remember the backup was not the backup. No, who was the backup for Miller? No, I'm thinking of another. I'm thinking of.
It was Van Beesbrook. He didn't play.
Right, it was Van Beesbrook. Right. I wasn't thinking. No, but Miller to me in that.
No, I guess he was out already. There was a couple Olympics before that. You're right.
Yeah.
Wasn't Tim Thomas the backup?
Tim Thomas was the backup. Thank you.
Yeah, Thomas was the backup. You're right.
Yeah, and there were some debates about that, at the time where Quick was like obviously Quick was the goalie. There was no question about it. And Quick more spectacular saves in the Olympics than Miller made in the Olympics, for what it's worth. I mean, just like spectacular saves wise, quick at a couple games.
You're just going by what he looked like making those saves. Ryan Miller wasn't as athletic as Jonathan Quick, but I don't think they're holding against him.
Jonathan Quick is closer to Tim Thomas than he is to Ryan Miller in terms of being a goaltender who flies around, who makes a spectacular save. Miller is a positional goalie, and everybody, who covered that series said one of the few reasons that Team USA got to the gold medal game was the steadiness of Ryan Miller. Oh my God!
All right, I just don't remember the same way. It's funny. I mean,
that's fine. I mean,
I was there. Like I said, I sat 10 rows from the ice for every one of those games.
At the end of the day, he's just.
I don't remember it being that. I don't remember Miller carrying him as much as I remember. I mean, I remember Miller playing great. No questions asked about it.
At the end of the day, he's just not the best, and I don't like NHL Network pandering to a guy just because he's coming on for an interview. That's what I don't like.
Anyway, saying all that, I think Miller is a Hall of Famer, and I think he might be a Hall of Famer actually. The question, and if he wins the Stanley Cup, is Miller a Hall of Famer?
But by the way,
he might be, but he didn't, he has no chance. There's too many others in line. That's the problem.
Now we now know why Eck was off the last 2 days, because he was obviously arranging a bribe to the NHL, because today Thomas Greiss was named first star of the week.
That's it. That's what I was doing. Yeah, I wish. Would have been a lot better. Yeah. So Miller, I don't know. I think he's a Hall of Famer. We'll find out.
We'll find out.
Ryan Miller's got the most wins as a U.S. goalie. That to me, wins
doesn't matter too. It doesn't matter. It matters. It matters.
It's one thing out of an equation.
Yeah, but it's definitely one of those things that they look at. I mean, Richter
won 301 games. He could have won 360 games, but he couldn't because he just his skull was crushed. That's just
I think the fact that Richter's not in there will hurt Miller, and I think that's unfair too, because Richter should be in there. Yeah, if Richter was in there, then Miller would be way more considered.
Yes,
that's very messed up. I think
here's the border here where you have Mike Vernon, 2 Stanley Cups, no Hall of Fame. Chris Osgood, 2 Stanley Cups, no Hall of Fame. Tom Barrasso, 2 Stanley Cups, no Hall of Fame. Mike Richter, I'll give him the World Cup being the equivalent of a Stanley Cup and a Stanley Cup, no Hall of Fame. Ryan Miller has none of those.
Yeah.
None of those. He's a great goaltender. He had a great career. God knows I got sick of seeing him beat the Leafs constantly when he was a member of the Buffalo Sabres. He's not a Hall of Famer.
He might be 75 years old when he gets voted in. When the only way it's going to happen, and this sounds horrible, is when there's turnover on the voting panel for the Hockey Hall of Fame, because I don't know what they have against goalies, but the rate that they put in goalies is pathetic.
No, it is. It's awful. And considering how important they are to the sport, it's just crazy. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about the North for a second. And all this week I'm going to be looking at the matchups on my blogs, and the matchups that what teams want to match up, who they want to match up against, who they don't want to match up against, and kind of predicting how I think these things would play out if they did just the early predictions.
It's ironic because this is sort of what I wrote about today.
Is it okay? I didn't see your blog.
No. Because it's the only thing to write about right now. So.
Well, it is the most interesting thing right now, and especially in this division. And why I started with this division is, tomorrow I'm going to be doing the East, because the East, all 4 teams play tonight, and all 4 teams could still play all 4 teams in the East. So, I mean, all 4 teams, any of the 4 teams could play the other 3 teams or something like that in the East in the first round. That's still wide open, but. This division looked like it was a pure, we're going to finally see Toronto, Montreal, and then suddenly, Winnipeg has fallen pretty hard. Montreal's neither of them playing well, but it's amazing that Montreal could gain ground on anybody the way they were playing, but they gained some ground on Winnipeg, and now it's a 2-point difference, right?
Well, the overtime goal helped a bit. I mean, it did.
Well, that was fantastic and fun.
But I dug into this a little more because you're right. It's a 2-point gap right now. But Montreal, the schedules of the 2 teams are very different. Winnipeg has 2 games against Vancouver, 2 games against Calgary, a game against Toronto, and a game against.
I don't think that's right.
2 games against Ottawa.
2 games against Ottawa. That's what I was thinking.
One game against Calgary, 1 game against Toronto.
That's it. Yeah. So let's think about that for a second. So I was gonna. When I look at that, I put them at 4-2. Like I said, maybe they go 4-2 in those 6 games.
And Montreal, 5 of the 6. First of all, they play 4 games this week. They played Toronto 3 times, and they play Ottawa smack dab in the middle of that, which is not going to be an easy game because Ottawa always gives them a tough game. And then they finish with 2 against Edmonton, so they're playing first and second place in the division. Now you could say, "Oh my God," but those teams might rest players, but still.
And they have also dominated Edmonton, oddly enough, Montreal this year, which is a really strange thing. Like Montreal is the best record against of anybody in their division against Edmonton, which is a strange thing. So that does, but like you're right, Edmonton not have much to play for at all at that point. Edmonton would be smart to last 2 days of the season would be smart to rest their players in those games for sure. So I gave Montreal a 3-3 in those final 6 games, and I think that so at the end of the day, Winnipeg is up by 2 now. They'll be up by 4 at the end of the year. But that's still close enough that anything could happen there. Who knows if Toronto drops 2 games in Montreal for some reason, or does Toronto have any interest in beating up on Montreal right now?
Well, no. See, then this is the thing. I mean, of course they will not admit it, and you'd be stupid to do so. But I'm sorry, looking at Winnipeg, even though Winnipeg is slumping, and looking at Montreal, I would rather play Montreal. That's not to say Montreal is going to be a cakewalk if the Leafs play them, but with Carey Price concussed, and he's just starting to skate right now, a week and a half outside the playoffs, with the injuries that they've had, with the need to add a 21-year-old. A 20-year-old kid into the lineup to get an offensive jump because your team can't score. I would rather play that team than the team that's loaded with top 3 lines and the Vezina Trophy winning goaltender. But the Leafs,
I get that by face value, Mike, but I still think if Price looks healthy with the physicality and the size that Montreal has, I don't think the Leafs should want to ever play them because they are going to get the crap beat out of them, even if they win the series.
But in my blog, I wrote what I wrote.
And one more thing,
with Russ.
And if you're playing Simmons 15 minutes just to protect your other players, then that's hurting you in the playoffs.
But that's why they added Foligno. But Russ, they're going to get beaten up either way because Winnipeg is a big team, is a physical team.
I don't think there is this. I mean, they are.
And let's talk about the Winnipeg Toronto thing for a second because it's taken on a lot of meaning in the last few days, and the whole thing with the big famous Simmons fight now that was it Winnipeg?
No, it was against Vancouver.
Against Vancouver. I'm sorry. I'm thinking no. Okay, I'm mixing up 2 different things. Winnipeg earlier in the year came out and said that they thought that when were they a team that said they thought the Maple Leafs were too physical? So I forget what there was something.
When they played the 2 games.
You know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. So
because Blake Wheeler, who's 6'4", got knocked on his ass by Rasmus Sandin, who's 5'11".
Here's a quote from Josh Anderson just came out. The only reason the Leafs are in first place is because they beat us so many times. There you go.
No, and Josh Anderson also came out with a really interesting quote yesterday that saying that the difference between playing Matthews or playing McDavid is that Matthews has Marner, and that's the big difference. And I think that he says that Matthews is hard to play against because he plays with Marner than McDavid is. But
that's horse crap because Matthews scored goals with Nylander.
Yeah, Matthews is scoring goals no matter who.
No, but I don't think he's taking it as I don't think it's a slam at Matthews. I think what he's saying there is that because most people would say McDavid is harder to play against.
No, I think it is a slam at Matthews.
I don't think it is a slam at Matthews.
There are people thinking that because Marner is so good at what he does, that Matthews takes advantage of that. And I'm telling you, I've seen Matthews score goals with plenty of other.
Oh, there's no question about it. I mean, last week, if you just look at Matthews' goals last week, some of them were the crazy highlight goals. They were just nuts, and then also some were again proving that what I've said that he receives a pass better than anybody in the league because some of the ones he just received were just crazy.
Well, what people are looking at is the fact that John Tavares scored 47 goals with Marner on his wing, and now Matthews is going to win the Rocket Richard because Marner is on his wing. It's not just because Marner is on his wing. He scored 40 goals. He scored 36 goals.
Oh no, and again,
Nylander scores 40 goals with Marner on his wing. Then I'll say something.
When I watched Anderson talk about, I saw him say this. I did not get the impression that he was going where you guys are going at all. I think he was just saying that. Listen, this is it's sometimes talking about playing Edmonton versus playing Toronto, and it's just like it is harder to play against Matthews because he's got because Matt McDavid doesn't have a Marner on his line, and that's I think legitimately fair. That's not like sitting there and saying.
But McDavid has Draisaitl. When you put Draisaitl on that line,
Not all the time.
The problem is that when Edmonton does that, if you stop that pair, they have nobody else to score. And that's been my critique of the Oilers all year.
For sure. But I think that anyway, he doesn't usually have Draisaitl on the line lately. So that's been the so I think that so when you look at this as well, the interesting thing, like I already said, is so I personally am with Russ on this. I don't think Toronto should ever want to play Montreal in the first round of the playoffs, honestly. And I think just because I think there's too much there that it just gets too ugly.
There's too much motivation for Montreal to beat them.
If you can make a solid bet on anything, if that series happens, bet Montreal in game one. There's no two ways about it. Like Montreal wins game one, trying to win the series, but Montreal win game one.
Look at who is the better team, and Winnipeg is the better team over Montreal. I don't care about all the
historical. It matters though.
I don't care. I don't care about all the historical.
And they're not that much of a better team, really. Honestly, they're 3-7 in their last 10. They've lost 6 in a row. I mean, they've lost 6 in a row.
Regular season, Montreal's built for the playoffs. It's different. We all know this.
Yeah, I think that's true.
You don't think Winnipeg, with their goaltending and their forward depth, is built for the playoffs?
Not as good as Montreal. No, Montreal has tougher defense. Montreal still has Carey Price. You obviously are thinking Carey Price can't even play anymore the way you're talking.
I think Carey Price is not going to be 100%.
But even 95% Carey Price is really good.
I'd rather have that than 100% of Connor Hellebuyck.
I'll take 95% Carey Price over the goalie the Leafs are putting in there.
Well, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the
it is if they match up.
No, we're talking about the opposition, who they're playing against. We're talking about you're putting Winnipeg and Montreal side by side. It's Hellebuyck versus
if this was Philadelphia playing either of those teams, I would go with you, Mike. But it's not. It's Toronto playing these teams, and there's a difference. There's an absolute difference there, and you can't get around it. And Montreal, saw what Montreal did in the bubble to Pittsburgh. Montreal has the ability to take teams that are very offensive and turn that back against them, and that is what Montreal does in the playoffs very well. That's where Montreal is going to give them troubles.
And you know what? Montreal has better defensemen all the way around as a group, and that's better than Winnipeg having an offensive defenseman who doesn't play good defense and 5 other guys that are good.
I'll be brief here, but if you break it down position by position, Winnipeg is a superior team to Montreal.
It doesn't matter. Whatever.
Yes, it does. It does matter.
Not completely. It's not. Mike, I agree with you. I agree with everything you're saying, and I agree Winnipeg's a better team than Montreal, and I think we're both agreeing with that. But I think at the end of the day,
I'm not saying
you're not talking about drastic differences that make Winnipeg that much better that the Montreal factor still doesn't play into it.
And I'm not saying Montreal is going to be a cakewalk. I'm far from it. I admit what you're saying. Their defense, that top 4 defense of Weber, Sherratt, Edmondson, and Petrie is really good. It is, but they really don't have a good offense. Their goaltending right now with Price diminished is questionable. Whereas Winnipeg, they're 3 lines deep offensively. They have the Vezina Trophy winning goaltender.
He's not that right now.
Their special teams are better than Montreal. I would rather face Montreal than face Winnipeg.
That's fine. We'll clip that and we'll see how you feel when it happens.
Yeah. I think that's what's going to happen. I think that is the end result. So it doesn't really matter what we think. But if you watch the last couple of games, Toronto has put up a 5 spot and a 4 spot just in the last 2 weeks against Winnipeg. I mean, it's like that the Jets have not been able to stop them at all.
And my point is that Toronto holds who they want to play in the playoffs in their hands. With playing Montreal 3 times this week, they if they beat them 2 or 3 times, then they're going to face Montreal in the playoffs.
The weird thing about this matchup is that in Toronto, Winnipeg's won 3 of 5.
Yeah.
And one of those wins for Toronto was in overtime. So it's like but in Winnipeg. The Leafs are 6-0.
No,
4-0, 5-0.
5-0.
Yeah, 4-0. Right, they play 10 times, right? So they got one more game.
They have one more game in Winnipeg at the end of the year, so they're 4-0.
Yeah. And one of those games was a shootout win too, but for the Maple Leafs. But still, the last couple games, the last 2 games in Winnipeg, really, which is recent right now. Winnipeg has not been able to play with them, and And that's the tough thing. So we'll see how they play with them next Friday, I guess, when they play. But that's going to be
that game could be meaningless.
It probably will be meaningless at that point. But yeah, I think you're going to see it. I don't know. I think, and then the interesting thing about Edmonton now is that Edmonton has dominated Winnipeg and just been dominated by Montreal. So when you think about the second place team, who they want to play, Edmonton
wants to play Winnipeg.
And that looks like that's how it'll play out. Now, when I say Toronto would rather play Winnipeg too, all I'm saying, I don't think that it matters who they play. I think they will win either game. Like I think they'll win it. I think they'll beat Winnipeg, and I think they'll beat Montreal. I think Toronto will win that series.
I'm not saying that.
I'm not picking Toronto yet.
I'm saying that. Okay.
I'm not saying that.
And Mike refuses to ever say that. I understand why.
And Ack is saying that to curse the Leafs, to lose.
I'm not saying to curse the Leafs. I'm wrong. I don't like to be wrong. I'm never wrong. So I'm not going to sit there and say that and be wrong. That's not what I'm saying at all. No, I'm saying that like I said take money on Montreal, Toronto in game one. Montreal's winning that game one. But that series, 6 games, probably Toronto probably is out. Toronto, I think will take either one. I do think that. Toronto, Edmonton, that'll be another battle in the middle, but we'll see what happens there.
Oh, can't wait that one.
Can't wait for that one. That'll be fun. I'm not cursing anyone. Jeez. I picked you to finish first place. Where are you, Toronto?
That was the curse. That was the curse.
You're in first place. How do I curse you?
I'm kidding.
I picked you to finish first. You're in first. There you have it.
Eck, we need to chat about the Flyers tonight. Not so much because they're playing Pittsburgh.
God, do we really have to? Yes, I know we have.
Because there's 2 questions. I brought this up before you were on. Is there enough intestinal fortitude for the Flyers to try and keep the Penguins from winning this game and winning the division? I don't know the answer to that. Based on the way they've been playing. But the other thing is Dave Scott came out and said, and Sam Carchidi tweeted it, that the Flyers need a few changes, but management won't blow up the roster. And I want to just say this and as delicately as I can. Even though you may have some cap roadblocks, it still doesn't mean you shouldn't blow up the roster. And by blow it up, I don't mean you're rebuilding 100%. By blow it up, I mean you're taking out at least 2 players, maybe 3, that you feel like have underperformed and weren't good in the locker room. That's what I mean. Well, the worst isn't saying that.
The worst thing about that statement, Russ, is you didn't get out. You didn't pick up the absolute worst part of that statement.
What, the apathy?
No, the apathy is obviously there. That is an overall terrible thing. But the worst part of that statement is management will not blow up the roster, meaning that management is going to be the same. Meaning that that to me is the worst part of that statement, because when I read that, I'm like, okay, so that means that this management that's in place now is going to knock blow the roster. I think this management that's in place now has done nothing good for this team at all. And that's where we're at right now.
I think the worst part of this whole commentary is that somebody who is a corporate guy is making determinations about hockey operations when he has no experience in hockey operations.
It's like, Mike. That's what happened.
It's called you're in a power position and you can put in your influence, but that doesn't mean you know what the hell you're talking about. And obviously, from the outside looking in, the Flyers are more in need of a nuclear bomb in the locker room than any team I've ever seen. Them in the East and Calgary in the West, they should be blown up. But whether Chuck Fletcher will do it, who knows? Probably not, because it would take, I'd say, some fortitude for them to do that. I mean, we know what changes are needed to be made here.
I don't think they're all out there, Mike. And as far as, look, we know about Voracek, right? And we know about, and you may not be able to do anything with Seattle, but you have to try your best. It may not happen. Right. It may not happen with Giroux either. That's fine. He's not hurting your team. He's not. Then there's other things. Nolan Patrick, I think, has to go. I think he has overstayed his welcome. I think he has done everything. They've done everything they can do for an organization for him. I think they need to move on for him for the roster spot, because he's not scoring points, and for whatever they can still get for him so they don't lose an asset. That's one thing. Shane Gostisbehere, you know what? I may buy him out. I don't care if the buyout's great, but I may have to do something like that, because there is no point in having him on the roster anymore. He is not the player they need him to be. And the fact is, he is also, I don't care how many points he has, everything else in his game isn't great. And at the end of the day, you might just need to set this guy free if you can't get someone to take his salary.
Either that, or, I mean, it might be conceivable for them to be able to talk Seattle or bribe Seattle into taking him because the cap hits.
And that's fine. That's another option.
Yeah, instead of the albatross that is Voracek's contract, over $8 million. Nobody in their right mind is taking it. Unless, right. So, but Gostisbehere at 4 with I think 2 years left is some. He could still be turned around. If he gets out of Philadelphia.
No, but it can't happen in Philly. And you can't go another season with him either. There's nothing else they can do. They played him this season in hopes they could trade him, and it didn't work out, and it didn't help the team.
You also talk about that. That's another debate. But anyway,
I know. But Brian Elliott, that has to go now, and they need a real 1A because you don't know what Carter Hart's going to be next year, and you need a guy who could start half the starts if he had to. So it can't be Brian Elliott. And we don't know what kind of schedule it can be. It could end up turning into a compressed schedule again, and that was the worst thing for Elliott. They need a younger goalie, and they need a guy who could get half the start. So they have to get a real goalie now. Elliott's been coming in cheap, and he was fine for what he was doing when it was the old schedule and didn't have to play a lot. Now they have to upgrade that position.
I don't know about that one. I agree with some of what you're saying, Russ. They're interesting thought. I mean, obviously, you got to do something. I agree with Patrick, Nolan Patrick for sure. I don't think everyone wants to move Drew. I don't think that's necessary at all.
No, I don't think that's necessary.
And I think that I mean, is Drew what he was? No, he's not what he was, but he still has shown moments where he still is leading on it, is still trying to lead this group, which is a very difficult thing to do. He's actually been a better captain this year than he's probably been in many years. But there's a problem with obviously the coaches, the coach in this team. They don't get along. I mean, this team's turned Vigneault out completely, and there's no two ways about it. I talked to people in the room, and I've talked to people around the team. Vigneault has been tuned out. Now
he's not going anywhere, so that doesn't matter.
I don't think he is going anywhere either, and Fletcher's not going anywhere either. So that means that Carter Hart. I think it's hard to paint this year as anything but okay. He's still young, still second.
Fairly or not, like Kim Dillaba's gone. They're going to have to get another goalie coach that connects with Hart.
They do need a goalie coach because I think Hart definitely could use that. And I think that I don't think he's gonna. I don't think you have to go out and get yourself a definite 1A.
Oh, I think they need that. I do. I can't go into next season thinking Carter Hart is going to do everything you thought he was going to do this year is the same thing as what they did with Matt Niskanen. You can't do that. Not when you know it could be a problem.
Well, it depends on how you address your defense, right? I mean, because so much of Hart's problems are not all Hart's problems, No,
they're not all Hart's problems.
That to me, if you address the defense and make some smart moves defensively,
they need a physical presence on the blue line. They do. So whether that is trading assets that they don't want to trade for Josh Manson, then do it. But they're going to have to get somebody like that who could play the part, and they have to do it this time. Like even if it's
I'm going to agree with that. But
do it.
It'll be interesting to see how much or little they do because I do think the biggest issue the Flyers have here, and it's just, I never thought I would say this in Philadelphia ever, is selling tickets next year.
It's going to be a problem. Yeah, I agree.
They're not going to sit there and when I was a kid there was like a 5-10 year waiting list to get Flyers tickets, right? Now at this point, you can get tickets anytime you want to, and every team's going to have trouble selling tickets next year, just because of people are going to be nervous about going to the games. There's going to be different things like that. Every team's going to have issues, and if you don't have anything exciting to sell, if you're trying to sell people more of what they're getting right now, like right now, it's hard to go down to those games. Like, and if for any fan at all, like no Flyers fan really wants to go. I mean, go to those games. They're empty. I mean, of course it's empty, but they have tickets there's tickets for sale when there's 3,000 tickets available. That's just like, that's kind of insane, right? So to me, if they don't do anything this summer to give the team some kind of excitement by some kind of major move of some sort, and if it's not going to be the coach or it's not going to be the GM, then it's got to be a player move. But if they don't do any of those three things, then they're going to have real issues. I'm
going to say this, the last thing in my 5-part thing is they need to get a veteran 4C that actually penalty kills, because when they let Tyler Pitlick go, that was a huge mistake for the team, because you even heard Vigneault talk about it a week ago saying, hey, listen, I brought in a lot of guys who have no penalty killing experience, young guys, and it cost us. Pitlick was a very underappreciated asset for the Flyers, and the only reason he was gone was because there was other bad money spent in other ways. And then the other thing is they should move JVR if they can. You have to trade him while he's high. He is still not going to help you win. but as a complimentary guy in another team, that's fine. But when you're counting on him to be like your fourth best scorer, he can't do it.
Yeah. And I think what Davy Jones says in the chat is what they're going to try to do, which is they're going to try to make a major play for Seth Jones. And I've heard that already. I've heard that before. I've heard it. It's like one of those rumors I got a long time ago that I kind of wrote off, but it's been amplifying over time.
We talked about this last week, and the only way that okay, don't get me wrong, trading Seth Jones or making a play for Seth Jones makes all the sense in the world. But for the Flyers, the only way it makes sense is if it's getting him to play alongside Provorov, not trading Provorov for him. That doesn't do anything. You need that dominating top pairing of him and Provorov playing together, which means,
I agree.
Yeah, that means trading a Farabee, trading,
so it's going to cost Konechny, Farabee. It's going to cost significant.
You're probably going to take 2 to 3 pieces, and then you're going to have to lock up Jones for 7 or 8 years.
Right. But it's sort of where that's the level of move that you have to make this interesting for fans next year, or else it won't be. It just won't be. And
I'll tell you, with Dave Scott just towing the line like that, Flyers fans are like, now they're ambivalent. They've gotten to the point now where they've reached the bottom that they didn't think they could reach. They are now looking, and again, look, maybe Fletcher finally gets something done in the offseason, but he didn't in the last offseason, so you have to wonder. And they're at the point of thinking, well, I don't know what this team is. Nobody knows what this team is now.
Yeah. And someone said to me that, they went down there and the Flyers, I like this quote, the Flyers absolutely given up and are a disgrace to professional performance. I thought that was interesting.
Well, speaking of performances,
that's what they look like. That's what they look like when you watch them play.
Speaking of performances, I tweeted about this. Gritty was squeezing different things to get fart sounds during that game. And to me, that was like perfect. It was a perfect crescendo for this season, for this 2021 season. It really was. I don't think Gritty realized how on spot on he was, because he's another one that needs to go.
Man, oh man, yeah. It's just like thinking about Ed Snyder and thinking about that kind of stuff just makes me ill. All right, let's move on to where can we go from there? That's a tough one to transition from, Russ. We only have like 5 minutes left here, but
opinions about that.
No, they should. I mean,
even outsiders are talking about the Flyers for these reasons, which is crazy, right?
That is absolutely ridiculous.
I got a couple things.
I have one fun thing. Go ahead, Mike. You go ahead.
One, there's a report from one of the Dallas newspapers that if the Dallas Stars make the playoffs, they are planning to allow 100% capacity at the American Airlines Arena for playoff games. Now, that going along with the report that came out on the weekend regarding the Canadian teams playing games in Canada, and how, with border crossing for the American team going in and coming out, that is still up in the air. It's I would say it's a 50-50 proposition of whether the Canadian team is going to have to relocate to a American city like Buffalo or Detroit,
right,
as opposed to the Canadian government giving them a provisional access to whoever the Leafs or the Oilers or whoever plays. I don't know. They denied the Raptors. They denied the Blue Jays. Maybe it's different for hockey, and maybe it'll be different in June when they're apparently getting a lot more vaccines now in Canada over the last few weeks.
Yeah, but it's still not enough by then.
No. Well, maybe not. But all I'm saying is, I mean, it's the dichotomy here between Dallas, where it's going to be 100, there could be 20,000 people at that arena, the arena that you and I were both in, Russ, for the 2018 draft, and them playing in front of nobody in Canada, and then basically nobody in the conference final if a team gets there.
The biggest thing I could stress is I was just in Michigan, and people really do take precautions there. Michigan would be a safe place. Buffalo would be a safe place because New York has taken a lot of precautions. I don't think it's safe enough to do it in Canada. Just giving a provisional whatever doesn't mean that players aren't going to come down with it. At least 92% of the population here has been vaccinated. That's not going to be the case in Canada. It's probably like 40%.
No, but the teams are going to be vaccinated.
Yeah, I know, but it's still not enough. The teams are still going to come into contact with everyday people. There's going to be things that happen. Hey, they order out. Okay, Grubhub, the guy comes to the door. He brings you a drink. There's still other things that happen in everyday life that
I'll grant that point, but in the heat of Toronto and Edmonton were in the bubble last year, and these teams are going to have to sequester like they did in the bubble, and there were very few COVID positives when they were in the bubble.
Yes, with no family. So again, now you're telling them you're in Canada, but your families can't come.
No way there's going to be families. No way. Yeah, I would seriously doubt it.
Well, I'm telling you, that's going to be another point of contention.
Yeah.
Point of contention. That's a huge point of contention. All right, so I have this, which is kind of fun. For those of us who grew up playing ball hockey, and this is like, man, I just wish. I wonder if if a 50-year-old can try out for this. I think he can try out for this. The National Ball Hockey League just finished its first official season. And the NHL Network showed some highlights from it the other night. It's pretty fun, so I want to put them up here for a second. I thought this was kind of cool.
Where do they play? I'll try out.
They play all over the place. They have here's some highlights from it. Let me see if I can. Okay, here we go. Yep. Okay, where is this thing? I just lost my screen.
My cardio is pretty good. I'll try out.
I mean, this is just like if I was my gosh. So yeah, so this is first game here is the Camden County Cobras. Russ, come on now.
Yeah, let's go.
That's right. That's right. Our neck of the woods. This is Michael Katz of the Camden County Cobras. I knew Michael Katz, but I don't think that's him. But it's pretty funny. These are just like they're obviously playing on a rink made by a Minecraft person. But but besides that, sorry. And there's the Twin City Classic. Matt, this is the Minneapolis team. This highlight, which is pretty cool. Just like,
wait, was he taking a shootout attempt?
I think that was a shootout. Yeah, that was definitely a shootout.
That took 100 years.
Well, it's you're walking.
I know he was walking.
Marlton Dogs. So are all these teams in New Jersey? What the heck?
Heck, we need to try out for this.
All right, if this exists in South Jersey, Russ, we have to try out for this. This is ridiculous. All right, so I am completely 100% sold that I want to do this. Okay.
I'm trying out if it's anywhere near. If we can get a hold of it, yes, find out.
I don't know if I can quite do a split like those goalies, but I'm definitely going to be better at poke checking than any of them were. I'll tell you that much because watching those goals, a little poke check would go a long way there.
And I'll play defense, and I'll play good defense.
Right. You know me. I like the poke check. So anyway, yeah. I mean, ball hockey is just like, oh my gosh. If there had been a professional ball hockey league at all when I was a kid, that would have been all.
I played deck hockey for a short time. I played roller hockey.
It almost looks like they're playing deck hockey there, doesn't it?
It does, but they're using a ball. That's the only difference.
I played deck hockey with the ball.
You did? Okay.
Yeah, I played deck hockey with the ball down in Chester. The Family Fun Spot in Chester, Pennsylvania. But I'm sure other people have played it. If you have, please comment in the comments. But that's where we played for a long time.
Next to it.
On a team captained by Dan Wallace, our Minnesota Wild blogger. I played with Captain EO on the team down there. They got destroyed all the time because we were in a league that was way too hard.
Are you going to blame it on EO's bad defense, or are you going to blame it on?
Eric was not a defender. Eric was a very soft winger.
Wow!
But had the ability. But Eric, he has he's a very good shooter. Very good. But not definitely more lanky. More tall than he is wide. So
you're saying he played like Peter Zezel? Is that what you're saying?
Zezel, no, Zezel had a lot more grit.
Wow. Zezel had more grit than him.
Wow. Eric, he's calling you a wuss without saying.
No, but he knows this. He knows I feel this. So we we still get together and do like the 10 shot thing where if he can score 3 on 3 breakaways and me in 10, he wins, and that just doesn't happen. So yeah. Wow. No, I'm trying to think what he was more like. He was more like like an Alexander Daig winger type. Like it's like kind of speedy, but very tall.
You're just digging yourself.
Very tall, very lanky. But no, he had really good deflection, a good wrist shot. But and
just picked up the tissue paper. That's all.
Not like a power forward by any stretch of the imagination. No. Definitely not.
The opposite of a power forward.
The opposite of power forward, whatever that was. He was a 4-1 D1.
A weak forward. Thank you.
He was a good old 3-1 D1, Mike, I would say. No questions asked, and that was what he was. So who would you be like? Who would that be like?
Jimmy Man. Oh, no. He was
Jimmy Carson. I was going to say Jimmy Carson, maybe, or something like that. I'm like trying to think of somebody. Anyway, that's probably too many.
Let's end it there.
That's too many goals. All right. Remember, folks, that's all we have time for today. I'll be on the Cord Killers podcast tonight. If you guys are interested in another podcast, Cord Killers, look it up. It's really fun. That's all about. I'm going to be talking about the NHL deal with that. So that's like at 7:00 tonight.
And let me just promote. I've been doing the Twitter has tried to copy what Clubhouse is, which is basically an audio chat room, and it's called Twitter Spaces, and I've been doing a Leaf Talk post-game show after most of the Leaf games. So if anybody wants to listen in or call in, I'm just promoting that just first.
Yeah, that's good. Definitely check that out. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you all tomorrow.